You never forget the moment your life splits in half. For me, it was Mother's Day. The irony of the day didn't escape me, not for 1 second. A day meant for celebrating love, family, and sacrifice, used by my wife to twist the knife. She stood in the living room, her arms crossed, the same way she always did when she was ready to declare something that didn't leave room for argument. "I'm spending the night with someone else," she said, her voice flat, almost rehearsed. "But it's not cheating." Just like that. I don't remember what my face looked like when she said it. I imagine I blinked once or twice. Maybe my jaw tightened a little. But inside, the floor dropped out. My heartbeat slowed. My stomach was hollow. My mind turned cold. Not cheating. That was her pitch. It wasn't a drunken mistake or a private shame that slipped out in a fight. No, this was intentional. This was planned. She wanted me to be fully aware, like I was supposed to give my approval or nod along like some spineless fool. And then she left. She grabbed her overnight bag, the one I bought her for our anniversary trip last year. Funny how life circles back around, and walked right out the door. Didn't even glance back. No hesitation. Just the echo of her heels clicking down the porch steps and the soft slam of her car door as she drove off to God knows who. The second she was gone, I stood there for maybe a full minute. Then I sat down at the dining table, opened my laptop, and started the paperwork. Divorce, custody, financial separation, all of it. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't break things. That kind of reaction is for people who believe they still have something to lose. I was done bleeding for her long before she ever spoke the words out loud. This was just the formality. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. For months I saw the signs. The late nights. The sudden girls' weekends that didn't smell like perfume or wine, but like cologne I didn't wear. The distance in bed, the empty stares across the dinner table, the half-hearted laughs at jokes that used to make her bellyache. She thought I didn't notice. That I was too dumb, too busy, too trusting. But I noticed everything. The paperwork didn't take long. I'd already done the research. Quietly, preparing myself for the possibility that this moment would come. My father always said, "Don't swing until you're sure. But when you swing, make sure it counts." By midnight, the documents were filled out and filed digitally. The lawyer would handle the rest. After that, I walked into our bedroom, the bedroom she would not be sleeping in tonight, and started packing. Her clothes, her shoes, her makeup, everything went into neatly labeled boxes. I left nothing behind but a few cheap toiletries she could replace. Every part of her life that had occupied this house was now stacked by the door, waiting for her return. Because she would return. And when she did, she'd find her welcome revoked. This was my home. I built it, paid for it, sacrificed for it. She wanted to go play house with someone else? Fine. But she wasn't coming back to this one. By dawn, I was done. I poured myself a black coffee and sat on the front porch. The morning sun started to rise, bathing the house in soft light. It was peaceful, quiet. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting on her anymore. When her car finally pulled up around 7:13 a.m., I didn't stand. I just watched. She got out, looking like someone who expected to play the victim. The forced tears were already welling in her eyes, rehearsing whatever lie she'd prepared to spin. But when she saw the boxes on the porch, her face changed. Her lips parted like she was about to speak, but nothing came out. I sipped my coffee. "Your things are ready," I said, my voice steady. She blinked, stunned. What is this?" "I took care of it," I said. "Since you were busy not cheating." Her mouth opened again, but she had nothing to say. No defense. No protest. Not even an apology. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any screaming match could have ever been. I stood up, finally, and looked her in the eyes. That woman I once loved, who was now just a stranger standing on my porch. Leave. She left. You don't get to a moment like that overnight. No, these things rot slowly, like a foundation eaten away by termites while the house still stands proud. From the outside, we looked perfect. Stable jobs, the nice house, vacations, the occasional picture-perfect family photo posted online with those nauseating hashtags. #blessed, #couple goals, #forever. But I knew better. I didn't marry her blindly. Or maybe I did. Love blinds you at first, then habit finishes the job. When we first met, she was electric. Confident. That laugh of hers, it pulled people in like gravity. She had a way of making you feel like you were the only man alive. Back then, I thought I hit the jackpot. And for a while, maybe I did. But even jackpots have expiration dates. The first few years were solid enough. We worked, we built, we saved. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling. I put in overtime, sacrificed weekends, passed on the stupid toys other men my age threw their money at. I was building something permanent. Stability. Safety. A life. And while I was busy doing that, she was busy rewriting the terms of our marriage quietly, secretly, one compromise at a time. First, it was the little lies. Just a quick dinner with the girls. I'm staying late at work to help finish a project. His name? Oh, just a coworker. I heard the excuses. Over and over. She told them with such casual ease that I almost started believing them myself. Almost. You learn to read a person's tells after you've slept beside them for years. The way her voice lifted half a pitch when she lied. The way her eyes darted when she was caught off guard. The sudden, inexplicable need for privacy on a phone that used to sit face up on the kitchen counter. Then came the distance. Emotionally. Physically. I can count on one hand how many times we were intimate in that last year. Each time felt like a transaction. No warmth. No passion. Just something she did to keep me from asking too many questions. But I didn't push. I let it slide. I convinced myself she was just tired, stressed, burned out. After all, who was I to complain? She worked hard, too. She carried her share of the load, or so I thought. That's the cruel joke of it all. You think you're giving grace, but really, you're just giving them more rope. Then came the friend group shift. The old friends drifted out. New ones showed up, faster, flashier, emptier. Women who spoke more about spa weekends than real conversations. Women who traded husbands like handbags. Women who validated each other's choices with shallow affirmations about self-care and following your truth. And slowly, I saw her change. The woman who once loved simple nights at home started resenting them. The one who used to laugh at my terrible dad jokes now barely cracked a smile. Every conversation became a landmine. Every suggestion became a personal attack. I wasn't supportive enough, exciting enough, ambitious enough. I was no longer the man she wanted, but I was still useful. A provider. A steady paycheck. A safe base camp while she explored the edges of her desires. And yet, I said nothing. Why? Because of love? Because of fear? Because of hope? No. Because of Belle. Our daughter. The only thing that still made sense to me. The one thing I refused to jeopardize. I endured the charade for her. So she could wake up to both parents under one roof, even if that roof was cracking above our heads. But now? Now the game was over. The moment she uttered those 7 words, I'm spending the night with someone else, I was free. Free from the lies, the gaslighting, the manipulation. And she had no idea that I had been quietly preparing for this for months. I had copies of everything. Bank accounts, credit card statements, phone records, even the private investigator's file that confirmed what I already suspected but needed to document legally. Her someone else wasn't a fling, it was an affair. She thought she controlled the narrative, but I had built my own. There's a certain kind of clarity that comes when you know you've been betrayed. The hurt? That burns for a while. But after the fire dies down, something colder takes its place. Purpose. A calm, surgical need to take control of the damage, not with rage, but with precision. I stopped being her husband the moment she decided I wasn't enough. From that point forward, I became something else, her problem. I started quietly, months before she ever whispered her little confession on Mother's Day. Maybe my gut knew before my head was willing to admit it. You start noticing little patterns. She's always texting, but never smiles when she looks at her phone. She's always busy, but can't explain why. She leaves for a girls' weekend, but there's no pictures posted, no tagged friends. You see it, but you don't want to see it, until you can't unsee it. So I started watching. Not obsessively, just methodically. I wasn't going to fly off the handle based on suspicion. I needed evidence. Hard evidence. The kind of evidence that wouldn't just burn her bridge, it would collapse the whole structure. I installed a simple keylogger on her home laptop, the one she used for her little side business. A program so light it would take a forensic team to spot. Every password, every email, every chat captured. She never knew. Then I hired a private investigator. Not some dime store hack who sits outside the house with binoculars. No, this guy was discreet. Ex-military. Professional. He found her within a week. Hotel meetups. Restaurant dinners far enough away from home to avoid running into familiar faces. The classic script. His report landed in my inbox late one night. The man she was seeing? A name I recognized. Of course. It's always someone close enough to sting. A coworker from one of her networking groups. Divorced. A bit of money. The kind of man who preys on bored wives who convince themselves they deserve better. He wasn't better. He was just new. The report contained everything: dates, locations, photos. The kind of documentation that speaks louder than any accusation. I didn't flinch as I flipped through it. In fact, I felt lighter. Every page was another nail in the coffin. I locked the files away, waiting for the day I would need them. But I wasn't done. I quietly rerouted our joint accounts, isolating my paychecks into a separate bank I'd opened under my name only. She never noticed. Her attention was elsewhere. The joint account stayed active enough to keep appearances normal, but it was now a shallow pond instead of the deep well it used to be. I met with my lawyer next. A ruthless, brilliant woman who handled high-conflict divorces like a blood port. She smiled when I laid everything on her desk. "She won't know what hit her," she said. I wasn't going to leave my daughter defenseless either. My lawyer filed preemptive paperwork for full custody, backed by my evidence. Substance wasn't her issue, neglect was. A judge wouldn't like hearing how mommy was sneaking off for rendezvous while daddy was home cooking dinner and reading bedtime stories. I prepared everything: finances, custody, property division, months in advance. Like clockwork. Because here's the truth. When a woman like her decides to cheat, she expects chaos. She expects emotion. Tears. Begging. Rage. She doesn't expect a husband who meets betrayal with a clipboard and a checklist. By the time she walked out the door on Mother's Day, I was ready. She just didn't know it yet. The sun was already high when she finally came back. She looked tired, no, drained. Her eyes were swollen, not from tears, but from guilt and adrenaline that hadn't burned off yet. She probably expected to slip back into the house, shower off the shame, and pretend it never happened. That's where she miscalculated. Her overnight bag was still clutched in her hand when she froze at the sight of the boxes on the porch. Neatly stacked. Labeled. Efficient. It took her a few seconds to speak. What is this? I stayed seated on the porch swing. Calm. Steady. Your things are packed. You won't be staying here anymore. Her jaw tensed. She tried to muster that fake wounded tone she'd used so many times before. You're overreacting. Overreacting. I actually let out a dry laugh. You walked out the door, told me to my face that you were spending the night with someone else, but you're still trying to gaslight me. Impressive. Her voice got sharper. Defensive. I told you, it's not cheating. We've been growing apart for months. You knew that. Ah, there it was. The justification phase. The phase where the guilty party suddenly pretends it was a joint decision. Like both of us had been steering the marriage off a cliff. It was always our distance. Our problems. I stood up, walked toward her slowly, keeping my voice steady. No. You grew apart. I was right here. Working. Providing. Staying faithful. Putting our daughter first. You were somewhere else entirely. She flinched, but tried to double down. We can fix this if you calm down. Fix this. I repeated softly. No, we're done here. I handed her a thick envelope. What's this? She asked. Divorce papers, I said. They've already been filed. The color drained from her face. That wasn't part of her script. She expected tears, arguments, late-night begging, counseling offers, anything but this cold, calculated end. She wasn't ready for efficiency. You're really doing this? Her voice cracked. I've already done it, I said. She tried to play the victim next. We have a daughter. I know. And she deserves stability. Which is why I filed for full custody. The papers include a visitation schedule. You'll have supervised visits until the court sees fit otherwise. Now she was panicking. The walls were closing in. You can't take her from me. I'm not taking her. I'm protecting her. She started to say something else, but I cut her off. You made your choice the moment you started sneaking off to hotels and lying to my face. The moment you decided that your not cheating was more important than your family. She blinked, her eyes filling with tears. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Her voice softened into desperation now. We don't have to do this like this. I stared straight into her, my voice cold enough to freeze steel. You already did. And then I walked back into the house, leaving her standing there, surrounded by boxes, holding her bag like a child who had lost her home. The door shut behind me. Solid. Final. That was the first domino. She thought the worst part was over. She had no idea what was coming. You learn a lot about people when they panic. After I shut that door, I knew the next phase was already in motion. She wouldn't sit quietly. People like her, people who live on appearances and social validation, they can't handle losing control of the narrative. Within hours, the phone call started. Her mother was first. "You don't have to do this, sweetheart." Her voice poured through the speaker like poisoned honey. "Every couple goes through hard times." Hard times? That's how they framed it? I didn't engage. "Read the paperwork," I said. "You'll find everything you need there." Next came her best friend, Laura. The same one who helped cover her lies, who played babysitter to her little secret rendezvous. "Look, I know you're angry," Laura said, her voice shaking with fake concern. "But don't throw your whole family away over one mistake." One mistake. I almost laughed. How many times does she need to make that same mistake before it stops being singular? Silence. And then finally, the man himself, the affair partner. His name was Brian. I recognized the cowardice before he even spoke. "Listen, man, I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he stammered, like I was supposed to shake his hand for being so respectful about stealing my wife. "You knew she was married." "Yeah, but she said you two were done." "They always say that." He didn't know what else to say. Men like him never do when they're forced to face the husbands they betrayed. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," I said, then hung up. The smear campaign started not long after. Suddenly, I was the controlling husband. The cold, distant man who drove her into another's arms. She spun a version where she was the victim, where my workaholic tendencies and emotional unavailability made her feel unloved. Some friends swallowed it. The gullible ones. The ones who only ever knew the filtered version of our marriage she displayed online. But others? They knew. The people who had been close to us long before she built her house of cards, they started reaching out. Quietly. Carefully. I never wanted to say anything, but I always wondered about the way she talked about you behind your back. She told me you were working too much, but it didn't add up. She was never home even when you weren't working. And then came the coworkers. The ones she thought were allies. One by one, pieces started falling into my lap. Screenshots. Messages. The lies she told weren't just to me, they were to everyone. Covering her tracks, manipulating sympathy, always playing the role of the woman trapped by an unloving husband. The problem with that story? It only works when you leave no trail. She left trails everywhere. Bank statements, hotel bookings, burner phone purchases, messages sent through apps she thought were private. I had all of it cataloged, meticulously, documented, dated, cross-referenced. And my attorney? She was a surgeon with this kind of evidence. Every file I delivered was another blade she sharpened for the courtroom. But I didn't just want to win in court. I wanted to dismantle the entire web of lies. Piece by piece. Publicly. Quietly. Permanently. Because you see, the beauty of a cheater's house of cards isn't just knocking it down, it's letting them watch it collapse, one card at a time. And the first major card was about to fall. The custody hearing was coming. Courtrooms are cold places. Not because of the temperature, but because truth strips away the theater. No more fake tears. No more carefully rehearsed sob stories whispered into the ears of friends. Just facts. Evidence. Consequences. That's where we stood now. She sat at her attorney's table, eyes darting everywhere but toward me. Her lawyer, some high-priced, divorce specialist puppet, whispered reassurances to her, probably telling her that custody battles are always stacked in favor of the mother. I sat at my table with my lawyer, Karen. She didn't whisper. She didn't need to. Everything we had was already prepared, filed, bulletproof. The judge entered. The formalities flew by in a blur of legal jargon. But I was waiting for one moment. Evidence submission. Her attorney made the first pitch. "Your Honor," he began, using that syrupy voice people like him use when they know they're selling garbage. "My client has been the primary caregiver. Yes, there were recent difficulties in the marriage, but Mr. Garrison's emotionally distant behavior pushed my client to seek comfort elsewhere." Karen didn't even flinch. She let him bury himself in that speech. Emotional manipulation 101. Finally, the judge turned to us. "Ms. Reynolds, you may proceed." Karen stood, calm and confident. "Your Honor, while my client has made every effort to shield their child from these proceedings, he cannot allow outright fabrications to stand unchallenged. We have documented, irrefutable evidence that Mrs. Garrison engaged in ongoing extramarital affairs over the course of a year, frequently leaving the child in the care of others while pursuing these relationships." She handed over the first folder. Inside, bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel bookings, burner phone purchases, all matching dates when she claimed to be attending networking events or girls' retreats. The judge flipped through it, expression unreadable. Karen continued, "We also have sworn affidavits from multiple friends and coworkers, all attesting to the deception, abandonment, and emotional manipulation exhibited by Mrs. Garrison during this period." Folder 2. Screenshots. Text messages. The private investigators report. The photographs. The video surveillance. Every lie caught. Every cover story exposed. Her attorney tried to object. Desperate. "Your Honor, this is character assassination." "Sit down," the judge snapped. "I will decide what's admissible." Karen wasn't done. She lowered her voice for the final blow. "And finally, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Garrison's primary affair partner is currently undergoing an internal HR investigation for workplace misconduct at his own company. We believe this speaks directly to the type of environment she exposed the child to." The silence that followed was suffocating. Her face drained of color. For the first time, she fully understood that I hadn't come into this courtroom to argue. I came armed. I didn't swing wild punches, I built a case. The judge leaned back, steepling his fingers. His tone was dry, surgical. "Given the gravity of the evidence submitted and the ongoing investigation surrounding Mrs. Garrison's judgment, I am granting Mr. Garrison full temporary custody effective immediately. Visitation will be supervised until further review." I didn't even smile. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about protecting my daughter and making sure the person who destroyed our home no longer had a say in how I rebuilt it. She tried to speak, to cry, to protest, but her attorney quickly whispered something. Probably the smartest advice he gave her all day: "Shut up." The gavel hit. Court adjourned. If the courtroom was the execution chamber, then what followed was the public hanging. See, people like her build their whole world on appearances. They collect friends like trophies, surface-level relationships built on shallow compliments, Instagram likes, and empty brunches where nobody really listens to each other. As long as you keep up the act, they clap for you. The moment the mask slips, they scatter. Her mask slipped. Hard. Word spread fast. Faster than I even expected. The custody ruling was the first domino. Those so-called friends, the ones who once gushed over her curated life, started asking quiet questions. They weren't interested in the truth because they cared. They were interested because drama is currency for people like that. The story couldn't be contained. Suddenly, whispers turned into full-on conversations. "Did you hear? She lost custody. Must have been serious for the court to side with the father. They said there's proof. Affairs. Lies. Hotels. She always did act like she was better than everyone else." The pity dried up quick. Nobody wants to back a sinking ship. Even the friends who originally defended her started pulling away, not wanting to get splattered when her reputation exploded like shrapnel. The same women who cheered her on during her secret rendezvous now ghosted her texts. The sisterhood of enablers vanished when the consequences showed up. She tried to hold on to her job next. Bad move. Her employer, who prided itself on family values, didn't like the headlines circling their office like vultures. HR meetings followed. Warnings. Quiet discussions behind closed doors. Eventually, a forced resignation to focus on family matters. Translation: "You're toxic. Get out." Then came Brian, her golden boy, the affair partner, the man who was going to finally make her feel alive again. He didn't stick around. Oh, he tried it first. He played the knight in shining armor role for a few weeks. Promised her they'd weather this together. But when his own HR department got wind of his role in all of this, the walls closed in fast. His company couldn't afford the scandal either. One anonymous tip to his corporate ethics hotline was all it took. By the end of the month, he was unemployed. And with no job, no income, and no image left to polish, he disappeared. Quietly. Pathetically. She called him. He stopped answering. She texted him. Left on read. Eventually, she stopped trying altogether. Now, the woman who once played me like a background extra in her little drama was standing alone on an empty stage. No audience. No applause. Just silence. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. Quietly. Solidly. My daughter was thriving. The house was finally at peace. And I slept better than I had in years. No more wondering where she was. No more late nights staring at a ceiling while she fed me lies. It was over. Almost. Because while most men would have stopped there, satisfied to simply walk away, I wasn't done. Not yet. She still had one last illusion to lose. They always underestimate the paperwork. See, Money was always her secret playground. She thought she was clever, hiding little accounts here and there. Credit cards I didn't know about. Side money stashed away from those freelance gigs she was supposedly doing while I was breaking my back building our actual household. The funny thing about people who think they're smart, they always get sloppy. My lawyer, Karen, bless her cold, ruthless soul, had been dissecting our finances long before we ever set foot in that courtroom. Every hidden account, every secret transfer, every little online shopping spree funded by her side hustle with Brian, or whoever else came before him. It was all documented. And now, after the custody ruling, it was time for Phase 2, equitable distribution. A nice, legal phrase for, let's divide the assets, and by assets, I mean let's see how much of your secret life you're legally accountable for now. We went into mediation first. Her attorney tried to play hardball, thinking I'd be eager to settle quick. You know, for the sake of peace. Karen smiled, slid our evidence packet across the table, and politely gutted their position in 30 seconds flat. Shall we proceed, or would you like to renegotiate your client's demands, counselor? She asked sweetly. Her lawyer wilted right there in his chair. Because the judge wasn't just looking at infidelity. Infidelity by itself doesn't wreck you financially, not on paper. What wrecks you is marital waste. Dissipation of marital assets. Spending shared funds on an extramarital relationship. Vacations. Hotels. Gifts. The law has a funny way of treating that as theft. Every penny she spent on her affairs counted against her share of the divorce. And because I was smart enough to track every dime, the math wasn't in her favor. The final calculation came in 72% of total marital assets awarded to me. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, even the cars. She walked out with barely enough to rent a one-bedroom apartment. And let me tell you, it wasn't in the nice part of town anymore. The apartment she eventually moved into? Third floor. No elevator. Peeling paint. Thin walls. She'd gone from brunches with her girlfriends at five-star hotels to heating up instant noodles for dinner alone. And me? I stayed in the home she once ruled like a queen. My daughter's laughter filled these walls again. No tension. No whispered late-night phone calls. No strangers sneaking around behind my back. I finally had peace, something she never valued, but I had fought like hell to reclaim. But even after all of this, I wasn't driven by revenge. No, revenge burns out quick. This was never about making her suffer. This was about making sure that, for the rest of her life, she would remember exactly who she tried to destroy, and who, instead, dismantled her, piece by piece, without raising his voice once. She took her best shot. I buried her with her own mistakes. And there's still one card left to play. By this point, she probably thought it was over. That she'd weathered the worst of it. Lost the house, the money, the custody, but still breathing. Still upright. Still able to pretend that maybe, someday, she could rebuild some version of her old life. That's what they never understand. The mistake isn't the affair. The mistake is thinking you can rebuild afterward. I had one card left, and I saved it for last for a reason. Her reputation. Her entire identity was built on the image of being this strong woman, the wronged wife, the devoted mother who just married the wrong man. That was the mask she wore for years. The mask she used to pull sympathy from everyone who listened. The one she still wore even after the judge handed me full custody and most of our assets. But there was one thing she hadn't calculated. Her employer wasn't the only one who cared about image. Her affair partner, Brian, wasn't just some random fling. He was married, too. And his wife. Well, she finally reached out to me. We met for coffee. Strange at first. Two betrayed spouses sitting across from each other. Neither of us sure who should speak first. But when we did, it was like flipping both sides of a coin and finally seeing the whole picture. She had her own collection of evidence. Photos, text messages, hotel bookings, financial records. Turns out, Brian had played her the same way my wife played me. And now, together, we had everything. Her career might have been destroyed. Her finances drained. But her social circle, her precious group of well-manicured enablers, still offered her some illusion of comfort. Still willing to pat her back and whisper, "You'll get through this." Not anymore. The evidence packet we compiled made its way, anonymously, of course, to the very group chats where she once gloated, manipulated, and polished her little victim act. Screenshots of the affair, of the lies, of the manipulation, of her laughing about how easy it was to keep everyone fooled. There's nothing more brutal than public exposure. Because when her friends saw the real version of her, they didn't reach for her hand. They backed away. Quietly. Swiftly. Like watching someone drown and deciding they didn't want to get wet. That was the real death blow. Not the house. Not the money. Not the courtroom. The isolation. The silence. The text messages that stopped coming. The invitations that never arrived. The friends who suddenly had no time to meet. The same people who once paraded around her perfectly filtered life were now embarrassed to be associated with her. She was finally alone, not because I forced her to be, but because she revealed herself. All I did was hold up the mirror. And me? I simply went back to living. My daughter was thriving. Her grades went up. She smiled more. Slept better. She wasn't caught in the crossfire anymore. The house had warmth again. Not because I added anything, but because I had finally removed the rot. And as for me, I had peace. No more games. No more lies. No more wondering. And for her? Well, now she gets to sit with what she built. Every single day. The funny thing about destruction is that once everything's gone, you finally see how much dead weight you were carrying. The house felt different. Not quiet or peaceful. The tension that used to sit in the walls like invisible fog was gone. No more walking into rooms where I could sense her lies hanging in the air. No more empty conversations. No more wondering who she was texting behind my back while pretending to scroll through recipes or Pinterest boards. It was finally my home again. Not because I claimed it, but because I reclaimed it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel tired. I focused on Belle first. She was my anchor, my priority. Kids are smarter than adults like to admit. She knew something had been wrong long before the marriage blew up. Children can smell dishonesty even when they don't understand it. After the custody ruling, Belle blossomed. Her smile came back. She slept through the night. Her teachers even reached out, saying she was more focused, more social. Like a weight had been lifted off her tiny shoulders. You want to talk about winning? That's it. Right there. I rearranged the house. Not because I needed a change of scenery, but because I refused to live in a museum of old lies. The bedroom furniture? Gone. The expensive boutique pieces she insisted on? Sold. Every item that had her fingerprint on it was stripped from my home like a toxin being bled out. I kept it simple. Clean. Mine. Then I turned inward. You don't go through war without scars. And you either let those scars define you or sharpen you. I chose the latter. I hit the gym harder than I had since my 20s. At first, it was about burning through the rage, the bitterness. But soon, it became something else. A reminder that my life belonged to me again. That I could rebuild not just my house, not just my custody, but me. And for every pound lost, for every rep completed, I shed one more layer of what she tried to bury me under. I also went back to therapy, not the fake couples counseling she weaponized during the marriage, but real work. The kind where you sit in a quiet office and finally call your own bull by its name. Where you finally say out loud what you knew but were too scared to face while you were stuck trying to save something that was already dead. Therapy taught me something simple. She was never my responsibility to fix. Let that sink in. We, as men, are often conditioned to believe that holding a marriage together is a measure of our manhood. That if things fall apart, it's because we weren't strong enough. We didn't work hard enough. We didn't love deeply enough. But the truth is, sometimes you're just married to a broken person who chooses to stay broken. That's not your fault. That's their choice. And when I finally accepted that, the chains fell off. And while I was rebuilding, she was unraveling. Her apartment shrunk both in square footage and in life. The social circle that once orbited around her collapsed. The new man she threw it all away for was gone. The career, dead. The money, bled out. Occasionally, I'd get passive-aggressive emails from her lawyer, begging for a renegotiation of the financial settlement. But Karen handled those with the grace of a guillotine. The original agreement was ironclad. She signed it. She lived with it. I never answered those messages. Not once. She wasn't entitled to my attention anymore. That was part of my healing too, starving the parasite. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was free. But freedom isn't the end. Freedom is the starting line. Freedom feels strange at first. You almost don't trust it. After years spent walking on eggshells, second-guessing yourself, analyzing every word for signs of her mood swings or deception, you forget what normal feels like. But once you taste it, you never want to go back. My days became full again, but this time, they were mine. The weight of her manipulations, the second-guessing, the mind games, it was all gone. My time with Belle was better than it had ever been. The simple things, the park, movie nights, cooking dinner together, became moments I actually lived, not distractions to numb myself. I even picked up old hobbies again. Woodworking. Something I'd let go years ago because we didn't have time or because the money would be better spent elsewhere. Truth was, we always had time. She just didn't want me to have joy outside of what benefited her. Funny how people like her don't want partners. They want orbiting satellites. That part of my life was over. Work got better too. I took on a leadership role, finally allowing myself to step into a position I had long avoided because I didn't want to disrupt our family balance. Turns out that balance was nothing but her leash. With the promotion came a better income, better benefits, better hours, stability, security. Meanwhile, she was still circling the drain. Every few months, I'd hear whispers through mutual acquaintances. Her financial situation kept getting worse. The few friends who were still willing to tolerate her pity parties eventually saw the same pattern I had. She was incapable of taking responsibility for anything. The victim act only works for so long before people get tired of playing audience. Her online persona cracked too. The carefully curated social media facade faded as people started asking questions she couldn't answer. The polished photos turned into recycled memories. The followers started thinning out. The comments went silent. And then came the real knife twist, not one I delivered, but one life handed her. I moved on. Quietly. Carefully. Not out of spite, not as a rebound, but because I was finally healthy enough to choose a partner, not a project. She was everything my ex wasn't: kind, steady, honest. No games. No control tactics. She valued loyalty not as currency, but as the foundation for something real. When Belle met her, she instantly saw what I saw: peace. No performance. No forced smiles. No tension brewing beneath fake conversations. It wasn't long before photos of us, me, Belle, and her, surfaced naturally. Nothing staged. Just genuine life. And those photos reached my ex through the same social channels she used to control so effortlessly. That's when the text started. Not to me, she knew better by then, but through her lawyer, through passive attempts to bait conversations. Maybe we should revisit the visitation schedule. I'd love to be more involved in Belle's life again. The custody ruling was harsh. Maybe we can reconsider now that some time has passed. Karen handled all of it. Surgical, like always. No. Every single time. I didn't engage. Not once. Because that's how you kill them in the end. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with silence. She was no longer allowed to pull me into her drama. She was just a ghost watching the life she threw away grow into something untouchable. And the best part? I never had to destroy her. I simply stood back and let her destroy herself. It always ends the same way with people like her. When the lies fail, when the friends are gone, when the money dries up, when their little audience walks away, they panic. They scramble for anything that gives them even a sliver of control. And usually, that means trying to crawl back toward the man they once dismantled. She tried. Of course she tried. It started small. Little indirect gestures meant to test the water. A card in Belle's backpack. A box of old photo albums she thought I might want. A social media follow request. All ignored. Then came the message, this time directly to me. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe we could meet sometime. For Belle's sake. Just talk. I know we both made mistakes. We. Both. The same manipulation repackaged. Like I'd forgotten who dismantled our family. She wasn't looking for closure. She was looking for relevance. The sad thing was, she actually believed her position was salvageable, as if enough time and soft words could erase court documents, bank records, surveillance footage, and betrayal. But what she failed to grasp, what they always fail to grasp, is that forgiveness isn't the same thing as access. And she would have neither. I didn't respond. Not even through my lawyer. She wasn't entitled to any version of my attention. Not anymore. That's when the tactics shifted from let's talk to I'm the victim. Suddenly, mutual acquaintances started hearing the new spin. He won't even give me a chance to apologize. He's turning Belle against me. I just want to be involved again, but he's so bitter. But here's the truth. I wasn't bitter. Bitterness is what you feel when you're still holding the rope. I had cut the rope. And every time she tried to twist the narrative, it backfired. People had seen too much by then. They'd watched the court rulings, the custody battles, the financial disclosures. They'd watched me quietly rebuild while she fell apart. Her desperation reeked. And then came her last, sad attempt to get my attention. She filed a motion in court to modify custody. Her argument? She was in a better emotional place now and wanted more access to Belle. My lawyer called me the moment she saw the motion. Karen wasn't even concerned. "This is a joke," she said. "I'll shred this before lunch." I barely blinked. We went to court one more time. She stood there, trying to paint herself as a rehabilitated mother, conveniently skipping over the full year of abandonment, the evidence, the failed relationships, and the career scandals. Karen stood up with a single folder, a timeline of every single court ruling, financial decision, visitation record, and failed responsibility she had racked up since the divorce. It took the judge less than 10 minutes to rule. Motion denied. Supervised visitation remained in place. No expansion. No bargaining. No fresh start. And when the gavel fell again, she didn't cry. She didn't even make eye contact. Because this time, she finally knew it was over. The court victories? The financial settlements? The public exposure? They were satisfying. But they weren't the victory. The victory was waking up every morning and not feeling dread anymore. It was walking through my own home and not catching the scent of her perfume clinging to furniture like a stain. It was hearing Belle's laughter echo off the walls instead of muffled fights whispered behind locked doors. That was the real win. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Belle flourished. Her grades went up. She made new friends, joined extracurriculars. She slept better. She smiled more. Teachers commented on how much happier and more focused she was. Even at her young age, she could finally relax because the war zone was gone. You can't fake peace to a child. They feel it or they don't. And I rebuilt a man that I barely recognized from a few years ago. The man I used to be had been drained by her slowly over time, bending, adjusting, accommodating. Now, I was sharper, clearer, stronger. Because once you've crawled out of the wreckage, you stop fearing wreckage. I advanced at work. Promotions came faster now that I wasn't weighed down by the chaos at home. I was sharper in meetings, more decisive, respected in a way I hadn't felt in years. Funny how much you can achieve when your life isn't being actively sabotaged behind your back. Financially? Solid. Beyond solid. I had rebuilt my savings, my investments, my retirement accounts, all without someone siphoning from the shadows for designer bags, spa weekends, and hotel rooms with men who thought they were slick. Socially? My circle tightened. Smaller, yes, but sharper, better. The fair-weather friends disappeared with her, but the ones who remained were real, loyal. The kind who stood beside me when everything fell apart and saw me come out the other side stronger. And personally? Well, I had moved on. Not with bitterness. Not with some rebound fantasy. But with a woman who knew exactly who I was, not what I could provide, not what I could be molded into, but me. No manipulation. No power plays. No games. She didn't need saving. She wanted partnership. That's a rare thing these days. We built something steady, something real. And Belle? She adored her. There was no forced blending, no awkward introductions. It happened naturally. Because when kids grow up watching dysfunction, they recognize stability like fresh air. My ex? She watched it all unfold from the outside. She saw the life she threw away continue to grow without her. She saw the home she could no longer step foot in filled with warmth that wasn't faked for appearances. She saw a daughter thriving without her influence. And I never lifted a finger to punish her. She punished herself every time she woke up and realized this is what she lost. And that I didn't lose anything, I gained everything. That's what they don't understand. The best revenge is not destruction. The best revenge is indifference. You'd think that by now, she would have accepted it. That she'd adapt. That she'd finally face the reality she built with her own hands. But no, people like her rarely accept accountability. They keep reaching for that last imaginary rung on a ladder that no longer exists. Her downfall wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was slow, quiet. Exactly how life punishes these people. After her failed custody modification, the few remaining enablers she had left evaporated. Even the ones who used to throw her lifelines, the sympathetic coworkers, the gossiping friends, the brunch crowd, they were gone. Nobody wants to stay attached to someone who's radioactive. Her career? Dead. There are only so many fresh starts employers will tolerate when your name keeps getting whispered in HR meetings. Her industry was small. Word travels fast when your personal drama starts staining office politics. Even people who once believed her version of the story started whispering behind her back. Her finances? Laughable. That tiny apartment she downgraded into? Eventually, even that became a struggle. Credit cards maxed out. Late payments. No alimony left to fight for. The financial settlement locked in by the court had been ironclad, and she signed it thinking she could outmaneuver me later. The mistake wasn't signing it. The mistake was thinking I was still the same man who once believed her lies. She took on freelance work, small gigs, scraps of what she used to have. She bounced from one short-term job to another, always one emergency away from complete collapse. The boyfriend carousel didn't work either. After Brian fled, the parade of new beginnings showed up, each one a little more desperate than the last. But men catch on fast when they realize they're not dating a partner, they're dating a black hole. Each new man would eventually see the same manipulative games, the same need for control disguised as love. And one by one, they walked away. She burned through every potential savior like dry kindling. Because the truth is, men don't save women like her. They escape them. And all the while, she watched me building, growing, living. The occasional sightings around town must have been torture. Belle smiling. Me thriving. My new relationship strong. No screaming matches. No custody battles. Just stability. Everything she once pretended to want but never valued. I never gloated. Never paraded. Never rubbed her face in it. Because here's the part that destroys them the most. Silence. Not hate. Not revenge. Not war. Silence. No conversations. No contact. No acknowledgement. She faded from my world like fog burned off by the morning sun. And every time she saw me from a distance, she was reminded of the simple truth that haunted her every breath. She lost everything she once controlled, and I never needed to lift a finger. I always knew that no matter what happened between us, Belle would eventually start seeing things on her own. You can protect your child from a lot. Shield them from adult problems, insulate them from courtrooms, hide the ugliest parts of betrayal, but you can't lie forever. Kids grow. They observe. And eventually, they start connecting dots you never had to spell out. The shift started small. Her visits with her mother were already limited and supervised. And for a while, Belle went along with it, like most kids do. She wanted to love both parents, wanted to believe both parents were safe. But slowly, the cracks showed. Belle started coming home frustrated. Not sad, frustrated. Dad, Mom keeps talking about you. I would pause, listening carefully. What does she say? That you're keeping me from her. That you don't want me to see her more. I never fed her my version. I never poisoned the well. That's not parenting, that's manipulation. I let Belle feel whatever she felt. But inside, I knew. Her mother was making the same mistake she made with me. Trying to rewrite reality. And Belle wasn't buying it. But that's not true, right, Dad? You never say I can't see her. I looked her straight in the eye. No, sweetheart. I only follow what the judge decided was safest. It's not my choice alone. And that answer satisfied her because it was honest. But her mother didn't stop. During one of the supervised visits, Belle overheard a conversation. She wasn't supposed to, but kids have good ears when adults think they're out of range. Her mother was complaining to the supervisor. Crying, but not crying for Belle, crying for herself. He's turned her against me. He's brainwashed my own daughter. Those words stuck with Belle. Not because they hurt her, but because they opened her eyes. The next time Belle came home, she said something that hit like a freight train, not because it shocked me, but because it confirmed what I always knew would happen one day. Dad. Mom doesn't tell the truth, does she? I sat beside her, placed my hand gently on her shoulder. No, honey, not always. She nodded. There were no tears, no drama, just acceptance. From that moment forward, something changed in Belle. The guilt that kids carry, the pressure to defend both parents equally, started falling away. She no longer clung to the fantasy of who her mother was supposed to be. She saw her for what she had become, someone who tried to rewrite her own failures into someone else's story. And the most devastating part for my ex? I didn't push it. I didn't coach it. I didn't twist Belle's view. Her mother did that all by herself. And nothing shatters these people faster than realizing their child, the one card they thought they could always play, saw through them. That was the moment her world truly ended. Because money? You can lose it. Status? You can rebuild it. Friends? You can make new ones. But when your own child quietly steps back from you, there's no coming back.